Okay, let's get started. Welcome everybody to our webinar, Careers in Quantum Tech from Q-CTRL. This is the fourth in our year-long series of webinar masterclasses planned throughout the year to celebrate the International Year of Quantum. And International Year of Quantum, it's a global initiative that raises public awareness of the importance and impact of quantum science and its applications on all aspects of life, and to help anyone, anywhere learn more about quantum computing and quantum technology. Hello, I'm Mick Conroy. I'm the Staff Product Manager at Q-CTRL. I look after Black Opal, our quantum edtech product that you're going to find a bit more about today. I've been with Q-CTRL for nearly 6 years, where I've been exclusively focused on making quantum computing more engaging and accessible for everyone. I'm here with some of my Q-CTRL colleagues today, Seb, Newick, and Jeremy. Seb Lecornu, he's the talent manager for Q-CTRL. He and his team are responsible for all things hiring and recruitment related. No mean feat, given the rate at which Q-CTRL is growing. We have Newick Decare. She's a research scientist in quantum computing. She designs and improves methods for error suppression in quantum computers. And we have Jeremy Brooker, who's a product designer working on interactive learning experiences that teach the fundamentals of quantum computing. Or Black Opal, we work together very closely. So thank you all for joining today. So first, a little bit about Q-CTRL. So Q-CTRL is a quantum technology company. We've been around since 2017, and we now have employees throughout Australia, US, Europe, and the UK. And we make AI-powered quantum infrastructure software to make quantum useful. And we have a heap of products here that you can see to help us do that. We have Opal for our quantum applications developers looking to boost performance on today's cloud access quantum computers. We have Opal for those working with the bare metal, our product for professional teams working directly with quantum hardware. We have Opal, our newest product, which is our quantum navigation technology that works in situations where GPS is not available and it outperforms conventional GPS by up to 50 times. We also have Black Opal, which is one reason that we're here. Black Opal is our quantum edtech platform. It's a product that I'm responsible for, and it enables absolutely anybody to learn quantum computing in a really practical, visual, interactive, and engaging way, with no prerequisites, and a great way to start your learning journey. Okay, and Black Opal in particular, as I say, we have a heap of courses in here that are perfect for anybody, and we'll actually be giving away a bit of a discount at the end of the webinar, 25% off. It's a great way to get started on your quantum journey. And in fact, just a couple of months ago, Black Opal won the EdTech Breakthrough Award for the 2nd year in a row, something that we are really proud of. Okay, so let's get started with today's webinar, Careers in Quantum Tech. We're going to give you a high-level overview of the state of the industry, especially as it pertains to jobs and career opportunities now and in the future. We're going to give you some insight into the types of companies that are engaged in quantum and the types of careers on offer in those organizations, and to show how those run the full spectrum from quantum adjacent roles that require minimal quantum expertise all the way up to specialist quantum science and engineering positions. We'll then be joined by Jeremy and Newick. We'll bring them in to talk about their experiences at different ends of that spectrum, how they got into quantum, what their day-to-day looks like. And we'll then finish with a Q&A at the end of the webinar, so be sure to enter your questions using the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. So yeah, we hope you'll leave today with a holistic, full spectrum view of what quantum careers are possible and the steps you can take to further your own journey. And so with that, I will hand over to Seb, just give you control here, to give us an insider's look at quantum careers.
Hi, everyone. As Mick mentioned, I'm the talent manager here at Q-CTRL, and I've had the pleasure of being involved in the majority of our hiring to date. So I'm really excited to talk to you all about careers in quantum today. So I thought I'd kick things off with why the quantum tech industry is so exciting at the moment. Quantum technology has the potential to be as revolutionary in the 21st century as discovering electricity was in the 19th. It can and is creating unprecedented advances in sectors like computing and sensing and communications, to name a few, and helping us solve problems that the classical approach would find impossible or take years to solve. So the quantum opportunity, let's call it, is somewhat limitless, which is why we're seeing so much investment in the industry, in academia, in R&D, around the world. And that naturally means that there's a huge variety of opportunities out there for a career in quantum. And in the quantum sector, there are a lot of different companies out there, more than some might think and realize. And they're all looking for a variety of different skills, from companies that focus on applications and software deployed on various quantum technologies, companies that build quantum computers or quantum sensors, or companies like Q-CTRL that sit across the quantum stack, providing both a software and hardware offering. And each of these companies have a slightly different structure, internal structure, we'll call it, which means they naturally require different skill sets to deliver and achieve their primary goals. So let's take Q-CTRL as an example of that. As Mick mentioned, we build AI-powered quantum control infrastructure software for quantum technology and quantum hardware, a quantum computer as an example, but we also build quantum sensors. And as the title suggests in this slide, it does take a village to build the quantum future. And we require a variety of different skills to do that, again, driven by what we do. Fundamentally, we go beyond the lab and build products that have a real world impact. We go from R&D to productizing and commercializing for market. But in order to do that, particularly in the industry we're in, which is naturally quite complex, we've brought together cross-functional teams from around the world to help build and deploy these products in the real world. So our team structure really reflects that. We have research capabilities such as our quantum computing and quantum sensing teams, a team of product managers who are interfacing between the customer and our internal teams, a team of engineers, both hardware and software dev focused, building and deploying our quantum sensors and developing our software suite. And of course, marketing and design teams who focus on making sure we're reaching our target audience and communicating the right messaging and creating positive and engaging user experiences. And these are just a few teams to name a few. That naturally means that our employees come from a hugely diverse range of experiences. That could be from academia moving into industry, or big tech companies, or even the two-person company down the road. It is really very broad. So whilst we might seemingly come from different worlds experience-wise, we all come together with a common goal to make quantum technology useful and to deploy products in the market. And this is really where you come in. The quantum industry is growing every day, and we need people with a variety of different skills, technical and not technical, non-technical, to help us build the quantum future. And that's something I did want to quickly touch on, the sort of research versus non-technical research types of roles. I think the industry somewhat unintentionally can be a little bit misleading, where the general rule of thumb at first glance might be, I need a PhD in physics to get in the quantum industry. And that certainly might be the case sometimes. It really depends on the role though. But also depends on what the company does and what level of the role might be. For example, we may have a research-based position in the quantum computing team, but it might be at a different level, so a slightly more junior position, which more than often and very rarely requires a PhD, as an example. Or we might have a position in our software engineering team for a back-end engineer, which certainly does not require a PhD in physics. It requires the core engineering, back-end engineering skills, the ability to build new products, code, and do software development. So this village we're talking about is very broad, and it brings together teams from all different walks to deliver these real-world outcomes, and is really largely based on what we do and what our internal team structure is as well. And I thought I would just take this opportunity very quickly to kind of give a real life example of that. So again, as Mick kind of alluded to earlier on. So earlier this year, we delivered the first demonstration of commercial quantum advantage with Einstein Opal, our field validated quantum navigation solution, delivering navigational capabilities resilient to GPS interference. So Einstein Opal is now a real product, but it started with an idea. Our scientists did the research and development, our engineers helped build the product, and our product and sales teams took it to market. That's a very simplified version, of course, but it's a good example of how there are so many different opportunities and skills needed in practice to kind of build these products and deploy them. Sorry. So what I wanted to do just quickly here was to quickly talk about some different things you might consider or perhaps adopt and take into practice to potentially start your career in quantum. One of the most common things I get asked, whether it's on a webinar or at a panel or an event, is how do I do it? So some points on that. Firstly, really understanding your skills, your key interests, your values. Some people know exactly what they want to do and already very earlier on, and some people aren't sure what they want to do yet, or maybe where their skills fit into a company in the industry. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and there's no right or wrong. And you don't need to have all the answers. So what I would recommend is really focusing firstly on what do you actually already know. And these points around your skills and your interests, you know better than anyone else. So that's something I would really recommend sort of honing in on. And at that stage, maybe thinking slightly less about where does it all fit in. Once you have that understanding, you can start to really create a targeted job search plan and connect with the right people. So researching the different types of quantum companies that we kind of touched on earlier, and what their team structure is and what they do is something I'd highly recommend drilling into, because that will naturally highlight maybe the different types of skills that organization needs, be that sort of technical or non-technical. For example, you've seen from the previous slides how understanding what a product-led company does results in the need for these different skills. And that can really help you create that targeted list of companies to both proactively approach as well as reactively keep an eye out for job openings. And on the proactive side, I think it's important to note that a large proportion of opportunities and jobs are filled that are never advertised. Often it's done sort of behind the scenes, people connecting with people and asking about future opportunities, keeping in touch with them as well. And then just lastly on this slide, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I thought I would touch on what recruiters look for. Often they are the gateway to organizations, not all the time, but sometimes they certainly are. So aside from a well-formatted resume and a really nice cover letter, which is something I would absolutely recommend having, it's important to know that there are many people with the same and similar profile applying to the same role. And this applies to all different types of positions. And it might sound silly, but if you're reaching out to the recruitment or the talent team, I would have the mentality that recruiters are lazy. I don't mean that in a literal sense, but it's important to know that these recruitment teams can go through hundreds of resumes each week. So if you can make their job a little easier, not that that should be your job, you're more likely to get a response and ultimately potentially be presented with some kind of level of engagement opportunity. So really taking what you know, the research and target specific companies based on your skills and interests and values, to connect and position yourself with the right people in a succinct and targeted way. And be realistic as well as another one, particularly if you're engaging with proactively engaging companies or talent teams. If this is your first role out of university or maybe your first job in general, maybe don't pitch yourself as the CEO. I think really taking the time to learn more about the industry landscape, defining what that means for you as best you can, and then targeting those companies that align to those key points, focusing on what you know, and learning, adapting along the way is something that I would highly recommend. So I hope through conversations like these, you can see the diverse range of opportunity out there for you. and hopefully start to piece some of the puzzle together.
Awesome. Thanks, Seb. A lot of extremely useful tips and insights in there. And so we've talked a lot about the industry and the organizations in it at a high level. But what is it actually like to, be in the industry? We want to take a bit of time now to dive into what it's like day to day for two of Q-Control's employees with very different roles and backgrounds, Jeremy and Ewick. Thanks for joining us. So yeah, I'll kick off with you, Jeremy. Maybe you can tell us, Jeremy and I, we work closely together on Black Opal. You're the designer on our educational product, Black Opal. Maybe you can tell us a bit about how you made your way to Q-Control and what your background was in quantum.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. So yeah, my design background has been primarily in agency and startup environments. So I spent quite a few years working as a UX UI designer in a New Zealand-based design studio, working with public sector clients that kind of focus on areas like health, education, environmental change, things like that. And I was also previously working for a blockchain company. So this is kind of the next step further in my kind of deep tech theme of my career. So making my way to Q-Control, when I first came across the job post for a product designer working on Black Opal, my knowledge of quantum computing at the time was more or less non-existent, I would say. I had kind of a faint idea of, the momentum in the field as a result of, the algorithms that kind of govern my various feeds. So there was curiosity there, but it wasn't a subject that I had done a deep dive into yet. But I was interested in designing for education, given my previous experience. And so, I was especially excited about the prospect of working on an educational product where the subject matter was quite technically complex and also in a scientific domain. It was also a really, visual and interactive product. And Q-Control were also in software and hardware, which I found really interesting. So it kind of ticked all of the boxes for what I found interesting, and yeah, here I am.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy. And we're also joined by Ewick. Ewick, you're a research scientist here at Q-Control. You design and improve methods for error suppression in quantum computers. I guess same questions. How did you make your way to Q-Control and what was your background in quantum?
Yeah, so I suppose I have a bit of a more typical background in kind of the quantum part of academia. So I did an undergraduate degree in physics and mathematics, and then I did a master's degree in quantum information theory. And then that's actually slightly different than maybe your typical quantum PhD, is that my PhD was in something slightly different, more abstract mathematics with applications to quantum rather than kind of a pure quantum PhD. And I think, during that PhD, I kind of decided that actually this branch of mathematics that I was studying was not really what I wanted to do, and I wanted to realign more into the quantum computing industry. And that is what brought me to Q-Control right after my PhD. And now at Q-Control, as you've mentioned, Mick, I am doing research on what you've heard the name before, Fire Opal, earlier today. And so I work on this product, and essentially I design new method for doing error suppression for quantum computers.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for the introductions, both. It's great to see behind the curtain a little bit. And let's bring Seb back in as well. Oh, sorry, we'll just get rid of the screen share here. There we go, so you can see us all. So yeah, let's dive into some aspects of your careers, your roles, and your journeys. So maybe we'll start with a question for you, Jeremy. So, you've got a strong background in design, but you came to this role without a professional background in quantum. So how did you prepare when applying for the role, and how did you get up to speed once you were in the role?
Yeah. So initially, when I kind of started the application process, and this was all, the world of quantum was all new to me, I signed up to Black Opal, initially to get an idea of the product that I'd potentially be designing. And that kind of inherently led to a little bit, gaining more of an understanding of quantum computing. And I kind of continued this when I came on board. It's actually part of the onboarding process for Q-Control team to get everyone up to speed. In parallel to that, I was kind of reading and watching, general quantum content to get more of an idea of the space, as well as, watching videos of Q-Control staff who are speaking at webinars and events to get an idea of what was happening across the company. But most of my knowledge, I would say, came from jumping in and just learning on the job. And ultimately, it's kind of about finding or having enough understanding to be able to do my job effectively. So working on Black Opal, particularly like the content creation process, where we're trying to represent quantum concepts accurately, but also ensuring that they're understandable through interactives and animations. You and I, Mick, we're having a lot of conversations with people who have the deep quantum experience. So I really just ask a lot of questions. And we're lucky at Q-Control. There's so many talented people who are kind of great at communicating the science to non-quantum folk. And that dialogue kind of helps me when I'm thinking about designing for our target audience as well, who are often, coming to Black Opal with, minimal scientific or technical background. Another thing is that we also have a lot of presentations in our all hands meetings, which are kind of an open forum where we get, insight into specific areas of focus of a specific team or an individual. So, we get a lot of visibility of what's happening in the various areas of the company. And I've found that to be a really useful tool for learning about quantum in general as well. So yeah, there's a lot of avenues for kind of knowledge growth, and every day kind of presents a new opportunity to learn something new.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy. And maybe, so from your side, thinking about, the non-quantum specialist role, like Jeremy, like myself, what do you look for in terms of, their ability to thrive in a quantum company? Are there any qualifications or backgrounds that help?
Yeah, I really kind of strip it back to what the actual job is. So if these are sort of non-quantum research physicsy roles, they often, if you see our job ads as an example, will often read as, if we're looking for, I'll use the backend engineer example again, a software backend engineer. The majority of what you'll be doing, and ideally you'll have sections, will read as a genuine, familiar back-end engineer. So those core dev skills, the tech stack that we use, the programming languages we use, the ability to work with product teams and collaborate to build these features and deploy them in the Q-Control product suite. So it's really sort of, from a skills perspective, alignment to the role. Like some people sometimes surprised that don't need those other additional kind of research skills. But also certainly the interest and desire to learn about quantum, which is why a lot of people want to join and get into the industry and join Q-Control, because the additional things that they do learn, aside from what they already perhaps already have, is the quantum industry, kind of like Jeremy said. So it's using those traditional, known, familiar skills, we'll call it, but applying them into a different sector and on different types of products.
Awesome. Thanks for that. And then maybe in terms of the more specialist roles within Q-Control, one for you, Newark. So you have one of those more specialist roles within Q-Control, but there are actually lots of different types of specialist roles that we hire for and that we have Q-Control and that you work with. Maybe can you highlight some of those different roles and some of the different ways that you work with them?
Yeah, of course. So I am a research scientist in the quantum computing portion of all the work we do at Q-Control. And so my daily work is kind of reflecting on the physics that goes on behind some different types of hardware, and how could we suppress the errors that occur in those quantum computers. And this is done through software. So my kind of day-to-day is working in Python, often debugging my own code. But then you get kind of, results. You run some experiments and you get results about interesting things that happen at the physics level. And then you design methods around that to give them to product. And then we get to transfer that into our technology. But I'm not, my job is not the only job that we have even within Q-Control that are kind of more quantum related roles. So if we go outside of the quantum computing division, we also have the sensing division. So on the quantum computing side, we're all working on software, but we also have on the sensing side, we have like physical labs and in our headquarters where people are actually building quantum sensors. And then we have also a whole team doing kind of applied navigation. So how can we replace GPS with this quantum sensor technology? So there's a lot of different roles that come into that. So you can think about physical experimental scientists who are expert in quantum, but you also have people doing the modeling aspect, and you have engineers, you have optical engineers, laser engineers, mechanical engineers. So all sorts of people that have either a bit of expertise in quantum or sometimes a lot of expertise in quantum, depending on the role. And those are all kind of part of our more technical roles within Q-Control. And even if we jump back to the computing team, within our computing team, we have people, we have people coming from a wide variety of backgrounds. So we have people coming from high energy physics or NMR or different skill set that are actually very relevant when we're talking about the quantum industry and all the kind of different, so really quantum is at the intersection of math, of physics, of computer science, of engineering. So we do need people kind of to come together from all these different aspects so that we can have a clear picture of what we're doing and how to solve the problems that we have. And within kind of my larger team, there's people working on kind of understanding the physics and the hardware of the different technologies that we are working with. So we have experts on that, but we also have expert on kind of, algorithmic design, or we have expert on error correction, and we have expert more on kind of the quantum error suppression, or maybe more on the software and computing side. And then we also have, people who are software engineers and who also have a background in quantum, so that we can do the translation from what people in research do and actually translate that into the product with product quality code, not what people in research necessarily are writing. And so you need that translation to happen correctly. And so we have experts who have both a background in quantum, but also really deep skill in software. And so I think that highlights a little bit kind of the wide variety of roles just within Q-Control that we have.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Newark. And so, thanks for highlighting all those quantum specialist roles that, require some of that quantum background. But maybe to throw to you, Jeremy, you're saying your background isn't in quantum, but obviously you have, your background is in design and applying that in various companies and situations. So in what ways did you find your previous experience as a designer translated into your role at a quantum company?
Yeah, so obviously, like a lot of people at Q-Control, I've been hired to apply my specific skill set that's not quantum, to add value in the quantum field. And so in terms of translating my previous experience, the general design approach and process doesn't change significantly. As designers, we're kind of used to diving into new sectors, making sense of complex business and user requirements, and kind of applying our design process from kind of discovery, conducting user research, through to delivering something useful and engaging for the user. And as a product designer, my focus is kind of to collaborate with product engineering and marketing teams to kind of shape the user experience and future direction of the product, which is a similar kind of structure that you would get in a lot of software companies. But the added layer to that is that you're interacting and understanding aspects of quantum as parts of that process, and that will obviously look different depending on what your role is and how much you need to know to do that effectively. Across the design team, for example, our common thread is that we kind of share a similar design methodology and way of thinking, but the team's focus and skill set is spread quite wide across, brand and web to hardware. We have a industrial designer on the team now, to some of our more technical software products like Boulder and Fire. And so the aspects of quantum and the teams that each member of the design team will intersect with will be different depending on kind of where our focus is. And it's about leveraging our kind of non-quantum experience to meaningfully add value.
Yeah, and I can certainly echo what you're saying there, Jeremy. And I didn't come from a quantum background either. And that's something I want everybody to, I guess, take from today, is that there is a really wide range, and you don't have to come from a physics or quantum background to get into a quantum company. There's, especially at the stage of the maturity that the industry is at and the organizations are at, they need designers, they need product managers, they need salespeople, marketing people, front-end engineers, back-end engineers, all sorts of people. So if you have an interest in quantum, there's a way in for you. But having said that, coming from the academia side is still really core part of the journey, especially into some of these specialist roles. So I guess, Newick, if you're a student thinking about pursuing quantum, perhaps one of these specialist roles in quantum engineering or quantum science, maybe you can speak a bit about your own journey. How did you make that choice? What should you consider? How do you get started and navigate through university level education and into academia? What advice would you give from your journey?
Yeah, of course. So I think there's a lot of things to consider as a student if you want to kind of get your foot into the quantum industry. The first thing, well, it depends a bit at what level you are in your journey in academia. But I think the advice I'm about to give kind of applies at all the level. I think the first thing you want to do is you want to explore a little bit and understand what are, as I've mentioned, the different roles that exist within the quantum industry, and that can be both industry and academia, and try to understand what it is you like to do and how you might fit in. That applies also, generally speaking, to kind of different type of science. So I think one of the first questions you want to kind of figure out, and this can be done through internship, summer projects, PhD project, research projects, just talking, taking courses, discussing with people. But one of the first questions you want to kind of answer is, what do you like to do and what motivates you to kind of keep going? I think I can give an example coming from my own experience. So when I was doing my PhD, I was, as I mentioned, doing abstract mathematics, and I really, really enjoyed doing what I was doing kind of daily on a day-to-day basis. I love solving the problems, the math problems that I was solving. But I realized that I was in a field that I didn't care enough about the rest of the field. That was just my personal feeling about it. But when I was listening to other people talk about or listening to seminars, I did not feel the motivation to kind of keep doing things in the larger area. And so that's when I decided, okay, maybe I actually want to kind of refocus my energy towards something that I know motivates me a lot more, because I had done a co-op program and I had done an internship, and I knew that the type of work that I was doing, kind of the day-to-day basis in quantum computing, was also very interesting, but I also get kind of the motivation from the whole field and the area around it, and I would kind of be more interested in kind of keep researching and keep pushing the discovery forward. So yeah, that's something that, and there's no right or wrong answer, but you have to figure that out for yourself. What do you like to do? Do you like to do more theoretical work, more experimental work? Are you motivated by kind of the field? Are you motivated by what you do, the people you work with? So it's these kind of questions that I think during your journey in the different step of academia is something that you want to kind of reflect upon and try to figure out for yourself, because it's very a personal decision that you have to make.
Yeah, and And thanks, Newark. And maybe Seb, from your perspective, what would you look for in a candidate that's coming from academia?
Yeah, I really similar to what Nyok said. And what everyone said is the industry is sort of maturing at the moment. So, well, it has been. So we're finding on the research side as well, which is where the majority of a lot of our team come from academia on that side of the organization. We're seeing some specialist roles that are very targeted, very specific. So we have roles that are specific to like atom interferometry, modeling, theoretical simulation as an example, or sort of similar, but on the experimental side. And that is very specific. But then we also have some roles that might surprise some people, that we look for people that have really good programming skills. A lot of our research department does programming dev work. We have had roles that require like strong data analytics skills as well, that also sit in the research department. So it is role dependent, but even in the research side, it is broadening as well. I think one thing I'd add to that is, outside of the technical core skills, we really do look for people that have a key interest in this sort of cross-functional collaboration that we've talked about today. In a company like ours, particularly because we develop products, you could be coming from academia and be a postdoc or something like a professor, perhaps even. And when you step into Q-Control in a research role, you're going to work with a back-end engineer and a product manager as well. So kind of being open and interested in that. And the other addition to that is, and one of the reasons we get a lot of people from academia as well, is wanting to have an impact and see the results of that as well. And I think that mentality is really important for us as well, because it kind of drives a lot of that collaboration.
Awesome. Okay, team, thanks for the discussion. We're going to move on to some of the audience questions now. I've seen quite a few come through. And again, a reminder, if you have some, to use the Q&A at the bottom there. Okay, I might start off with one, I think for Newark here. So this is from Leo. It says, hey, I'm a seasoned software engineer doing a master's in maths at Uni SQ. My goal is to do a PhD next. What math skills do I need to focus on a research role in a company like yours?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I'd say, I mean, in terms of kind of pure math skills, it's not like I need to, we're going to ask, unless we have a very, very specific role, how do you solve this specific type of differential equation or something? We do want to have people who are comfortable with mathematics, who are not afraid, who will come up to a problem and be like, oh, this is something that requires knowledge of graph theory. This is something that requires knowledge of optimization problem, and be comfortable enough with kind of all the different aspects of mathematics to be like, okay, I do not have the technical skills to kind of solve this. I'm not an expert in this field, but I will go and figure it out. I will ask the people around in my team. I will figure out who has the most expertise in this. I will ask them question, and then I will go by myself and I will figure out what I need to solve this problem and make sure that I have the skills for that. So you do want to know mathematics, but I think in terms of skills that we're definitely looking for, we do want, depending on the role, either kind of very specific skills in quantum, or we want very specific skills in software. I cannot think of a role right now where we're kind of requiring a very narrow knowledge of mathematics, but it's more about this ability to kind of transfer knowledge and figure out what type of mathematics applies to the type of problem that you're solving. Because as I've mentioned, this field is extremely interconnected and multidisciplinary. So we solve all types of problem that are related to physics or math, and we just need different techniques to solve our different types of problems. So we just need to not be afraid to kind of jump into that.
Perfect. And maybe from the other side of things, a question from Fernando, I think for Seb here. So Fernando says, I'm a sales engineer in web acceleration and security with more than 20 years of experience. Do you have any specific advice about pivoting into a similar role in quantum?
It's a good question. I kind of circle back to the like what you do know side of things. So if you're in a sales or pre-sales or sales engineer role and you haven't done quantum before, but you want to make the transition, think about perhaps the things that do relate to a sales role. Because again, I know it sort of might sound a bit repetitive, but these roles that are that we recruit for look for the core skills of that for that specific job. So if we look for a sales related position, we'll be looking for people with those core sales fundamentals. So there's some things you could consider. What does your sales process look like? So, and does that perhaps relate to what our sales process or sales cycle might be? Are you targeting similar market segments as well? We work across a variety of different market segments, but researching and understanding that, and if there are relations to that, you might have a similar process and approach. And I think highlighting that if you are going to proactively or reactively engage a company in the quantum sector. And then there's some other sort of proactive things you could do around making transitions to get more exposure into those domains that would naturally kind of perhaps increase your chance of getting a role into the quantum sector.
Yeah, and I would add to that, you mentioned, security as one of your areas of specialisms. And again, we have like infrastructure teams, DevOps teams within Q Control who, have that area of focus, and, the size of that Q Control is at these days and sort of organizations we work with, having an extremely well engineered platform with high levels of security, it's well engineered, that sort of thing, that's not ancillary to what we do. That's core to what we do and core to our ability to actually do business in the real world. So again, those sorts of specialism, we have teams of people that do that, and certainly those sorts of skills will be in demand as the industry continues to mature as well. Okay, I think I have another question here for Newick. It's an anonymous one, but so I am a computational physics undergraduate student. Since my knowledge of quantum mechanics and information is still only developing, what is one thing that I could do in the meantime to get a shoe into the quantum computing industry?
Right. No, that's a very good question. Of course, the first thing you can do is sign up for Black Opal. But after that, there's a lot of things kind of, within the context of education that you can do. If you have, if there's courses that you can sign up for, even within kind of the computer science department, or if you can take kind of an extra class in physics or something, that's always a plus. I would say, I think where you will learn the most is if you can get kind of a summer research project or an internship, a co-op program, or kind of a honors project or something that you work more closely with someone in the field on something that is of interest to you in the quantum industry. I think that would be the easiest way forward to really gain skill. I learned a lot, but I will say that when I did my undergrad, I don't think, no, at no point in my undergrad did I do a co-op or summer project or something in quantum. I ended up doing a lot of things in, high energy physics, laser physics, NMR, a lot of different things. But then it's only during my master's and my PhD that I actually kind of focused really more on the quantum aspect of things. So other than having a few classes in quantum mechanics, I was not kind of an expert in quantum coming out of my undergrad. So I think, definitely look for opportunities and try to fit them in as much as possible, especially for things like kind of, summer project and things like that. And also, there's a lot of resources online if you're kind of self-motivated to kind of learn things. There's, other than Black Opal, there's like the Qiskit summer program project. I'm not sure how they call it, that you can either sign up for or just kind of listen to the courses separately. And I'm sure there's a lot of other similar resources that you can just have a look and kind of follow along and learn quite a lot of kind of very technical skills if you're interested.
Thanks, Newick. Another one here, maybe for Seb. As a recent graduate with a double degree in aerospace engineering and computer science, I'm curious if there are any people with engineering backgrounds that have pivoted into quantum scientist roles at Q Control. If not, what kind of roles do you think would be relevant for that kind of background? Whilst you're thinking, I could just say, even within our quantum sensing team within Q Control, we have, for example, mechanical engineers that are working within that team that have come from, a similar sort of background to yours. So even without pivoting directly into the quantum science role, there are, some extremely technical hands-on roles working with quantum hardware within the organization that come from, as I said, like mechanical engineering sort of backgrounds. But yeah, do you want to expand on that, Seb?
Yeah, I'd really echo what Mick just said. It would sort of depend on what path you want to go down. So the short answer is yes. There's a pathway for those types of skills. The direction that you go really again depends on partially obviously what you want to do and where the skills lie. But as Mick said, we have if you were to go down the core software dev side of things, we have our sort of computing engineering team. That's where a lot of our back end and front end full stack capability sits. We have a team in there that also sort of sit slightly closer to the physics of the product. So they're taking research code from the quantum computing team and applying that, and translating that into software development production grade patterns and applying that to our actual software suite as well. But still, we typically look for strong back end capabilities. And then we also have the broader engineering side of things, which is sort of working closer with the hardware. So you have like Mick said, the sensing engineering team, and even in that team, you have the mech engineers, the optical, the electrical, the systems engineers, but we even have embedded software engineers as well, sort of playing a little bit between the hardware and software side. So short answer is yes. Typically, there would be a pathway. And it just sort of be about, joining conversations like this to learn about the kind of broad scope. And you can kind of start to hone in on what direction you want to go down.
Thanks, Seb. I've got one here that I think probably Jeremy and I could both take. It's what do you recommend for folks transitioning from other careers? Does Black Opal have a knowledge growth path, certificates or badges that allows them to showcase enough proficiency to work on Q Control products? So yeah, I think this obviously leans really well into what we're trying to do with Black Opal. So it's very much like a self-driven learning platform where you can log on there. We have various skills or modules to take you from I don't know anything about quantum all the way through to being able to understand a lot of the key concepts, the key algorithms, starting to be able to program a quantum computer and even understand a lot of the applications of quantum computing that are emerging and show a lot of promise for real problems over the next 2 or 3 years. And so in terms of a pathway, so yeah, every sort of module you complete, you do get micro certifications, and there's a full sort of quantum fundamental certificate that you get at the end that you can showcase somewhere like your LinkedIn credentials, for example. And that's something that we put our name to and that we issue. And I can say that we have had quite a number of people that have gone through that process, gotten that certificate, and are now have now transitioned to jobs within the quantum industry with the likes of IBM and other companies. So it is enough, like Black Opal itself is enough to get that solid base of understanding, to be able to speak the language, understand where it's appropriate, and actually get into some of these quantum adjacent roles that we've been discussing, the likes of product manager in a quantum company, a designer in a product company. It's not going to be a replacement for a PhD, but a lot of times what you need to start is just a really solid understanding of the foundations and what's possible, and can certainly get you to that point. Jeremy, I don't know if you want to add anything to that question.
No, I think you answered it really well. But yeah, I would say that, Black Opal does a really good job of establishing those fundamentals, and that you can obviously dive a lot deeper into you can dive even deeper into the space with there's a lot of, as New York mentioned, there's a lot of other resources out there, and a lot of people do go down that route to kind of establish a really strong knowledge. And the other thing is obviously understanding how your existing skill set will translate to, a particular area of a quantum company.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeremy. And just a question here that I think maybe is a bit for Seb and a little bit for Newick. This is from Jack. Yes, I'm a final year undergrad studying physics and engineering, and I've experience with some software and also hardware, quantum computing through personal projects. I think this links in well with the previous question where, maybe you're doing some of your own learning as you're working through your journey. And so Jack is interested then in research roles, quantum related roles, and I think I can learn what else I need to do on the job. How do I showcase this and this work that he's been doing without having a PhD? What sorts of personal projects contribute to this? Perhaps Seb, I'll throw to you first.
Yeah, I'd say what you're doing is really good. When we look for, I'm going to say junior, but that's subjective to obviously the company and what they define that as, but we'll call it that. So if we look for sort of more junior, mid-level type of positions, sometimes we don't, we look for a pretty minimum level of work experience, we'll call it. So we actually go a little bit deeper when we're looking at someone's profile. And look at these things like the personal projects, or if they're in academia and they're part of different groups and associations, extracurricular type activities, these types of things we're really interested in. One, because these projects and engagements can be relevant to the role, or the process of how what you're doing there could be relevant to the role, but also it demonstrates some of the broader skills we look for, like an eagerness to learn and develop and pick up new skills and things like that. So I would certainly highlight that. If we're talking like resume stuff, I would highlight that at the top of your resume. If you're proactively engaging people in the market for roles as well, I would lead with that as well. And I think sort of how you've position this question as well comes back to that being realistic thing. I don't have XYZ yet, but this is what I am doing and what I'm applying, what my motivations are. And if you can get that message across, and there's a sort of maybe a slightly more junior level position, you would be, in my opinion, more likely to have some level of engagement with whoever you're trying to target.
Thanks. Newick, did you want to add anything to that?
Not much, no. I think Seb covered most of it. I think maybe from the research perspective, what we are maybe looking for, maybe less in kind of, software projects, is more kind of research project, kind of research skills. But we do hire a little bit less at the junior level. Yeah, we'd be looking for kind of, summer projects or so, and those don't have to be kind of unrelated to software skills. There's a lot of projects that you can do that are mostly software, but also kind of have a research component, and those are a slightly different set of skills that we're looking for. So if you are interested in a more research role, it's important to have kind of that those type of skills highlighted too in your, say, portfolio of projects. That's the only thing I want to add.
Fantastic. Okay, well, look, thanks for all your questions. We had a lot of questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of them today. Hopefully we touched on at least some of the aspects that you were interested in. And we hope we've shown you the breadth of what's possible in quantum computing for your future careers, and given you some ideas about what steps to take next. One of those steps, obviously, is Black Opal. It's the perfect way to go from some level of quantum understanding, perhaps zero, all the way to quantum literacy. And it's a way that you can get into a role in the quantum industry. So today we're offering all webinar attendees a code just for you. So 25% off the pro version of Black Opal. It gives you access to all the available content, enhanced practice functions, the certification I mentioned earlier, quantum simulators, and more. So give that a try. You can scan the QR code for that, or we'll be emailing you afterwards as well. Also to say, Q-Control is hiring. So if you are already in the market for a quantum role, please check out our careers page by, again, going to qcontrol.com/careers, or you can scan the QR code and you'll find a link there. So that's it for today. Thanks to Seb, Newick, and Jeremy for joining me. And thanks to you all for giving us your time and attending today. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one.